In 2077, they voted my city the worst place to live in America.
Hello, Johnny from Eurogamer here, and oh boy, how about that Cyberpunk 2077 trailer? That was really quite something. For me, it was definitely the highlight of the Microsoft E3 press conference, and that includes the bits when Capcom, you know, just pretended DMC Devil May Cry never happened, and Funko just straight up murdered a much-loved video game franchise. Anyway, it was good to get a look at this video game after such a long wait to see what CD Projekt Red and Mike Pondsmith have been cooking up. And I'm going to be honest, it really left us with more questions than answers, but also kind of like the city itself. It was really densely packed, and I think there are actually quite a few details we can pull out of it. And most of all, it was just really cool. So while we wait to get a proper look at this game, and I really hope we can bring you something more substantial on Cyberpunk 2077 very, very soon, I thought I'd just sort of pick through it and see what we can pull out of it. I will say I'm no expert on Cyberpunk, but I know little bits and pieces, and hopefully between us we can come up with a fairly good idea of what this game actually is. First up, did you notice all the text that was scrolling on the screen? Those were actually Witcher 3 and expansion pass codes for people to claim. They have, needless to say, all been claimed now, but that is a really lovely touch from CD Projekt. But anyway, basically, the trailer opens up on the subway, and it shows that, well, it even tells you specifically that the city is pretty violent and not a nice place to live, and yet people just want to live there. And that's because, as the map itself in the opening shot confirms, the game is of course set in Night City. Now, Night City geographically sits between Los Angeles and San Francisco, and it's where Cyberpunk 2020 took place, for example. And if you look at the map, it seems we've got a few different regions that are mentioned by name. There's the Orbital Air Space Center, Hayward, the City Center, Westbrook, and Watson. Whether that, is an indicator of specific zones in the actual game is another thing. Not entirely sure at this point. So if you look at the ticker on the actual train, it confirms a few other locations like Med Center, New Harbor, and Little China. And some of these place names will be familiar to people who have played Cyberpunk, the pen and paper role-playing game. For example, Hayward is basically this sort of industrial area that actually plays host to the Arasaka Arms Factory. Now, Arasaka is a corporation we're going to come back to in a minute, and indeed, corporations, as you can sort of see from the trailer with these people looming behind a desk, are rife in the city. And indeed, this is sort of where we start to get our main story thread, because if you look at the news ticker in this shot, which seems to show people fighting in the streets, one headline is "Dozens Killed Since April in a Wave of Anti-Corporate Protests." And then very quickly we get to see this guy really not feeling so good, sat at a desk. And if you look in the corner here, it says Arasaka, which is, again, a corporation that we just mentioned. It lives in Hayward. Now, if you're not familiar with Arasaka, I'm going to quote from Cyberpunk Wiki here. Arasaka is the corporate leader in private security and paramilitary contracting, and basically they are pretty big fish. Their services also include asymmetric warfare, apparently, and clandestine black ops with political, military, and economic acquisition, also among their specialities. Now, once you see this guy collapse at the desk in an Arasaka building, we cut to this shot where somebody is kind of jacking out in a room where there's this screen saying Arasaka unveils new project for NC, presumably Night City. I guess because these shots are kind of lined up, we're to assume this person has hacked in and basically done this to this guy in Arasaka. So if I had to put money on it, I'd say that the story revolves around the political climate with the corporations and resistance coming up against that. And the question here is, where does the protagonist fit into all of this? Because we see him kind of strutting around with his light-up samurai jacket and his extremely cool car, and it's cute that the license plate, by the way, says CP77. It is an awesome ride. But they're kind of just talking about the city and how it's this hive of villainy. And it's difficult to get a sense of where they actually come from until, that is, you follow the direction at the end of the trailer which tells you to go to cyberpunk.net. Now, if you do that, there's a link that says, "Hello, Night City," and then there's a bit of text which sort of explains what's going on. I will read that to you now. It says, "Night City, California, year 2077. So far, so good. The world is broken. Megacorps manage every aspect of life from the top floors of their skyscraping fortresses. Down below, the streets are run by drug-pushing gangs, tech hustlers, and illegal brain dance slingers. The in-between is where the decadence, sex, and pop culture mix with violent crime, extreme poverty, and the unattainable promise of the American dream. You are V, a cyberpunk. In a world of cyber-enhanced street warriors, tech-savvy netrunners, and corporate life hackers, today is your first step to becoming an urban legend." So it's clear that you're kind of playing as this guy who wants to seek his fame and fortune in this city, which is rife with tension at the minute with the corporations. And to be honest, all of that text is definitely borne out in this trailer, because it just seems like there are different types of people absolutely everywhere, which you can tell from their different augmentations, but they just seem to be organised in these little warring factions. I guess those are the drug-pushing gangs, and it just seems like a city ready to absolutely boil over. So thinking about this as an RPG being made by CD Projekt, it's going to be interesting, to see what the systems are like and sort of the factions you can interact with and how they interact, and whether you can sort of push tensions one way or the other, and what impact you can have on this city. Because it seems like such a dense place that presumably if you're screwing with somebody, you're gonna feel the repercussions of that. It's not like you can necessarily escape. And there are just so many cool details here. There's Blue Man Group taking a cab with like a small arsenal of guns in the back, and the driver seems thrilled. There's like a robot boxing gym. There's a lady doing her makeup and she doesn't have a mouth. And you can get a glimpse at some other corporations here. You've got Militech on the weapons in a few different shots. So clearly they're a big arms producer in Night City and in this game. And also there's this weird moment where you've got this one shot where these people are helpfully applying a defibrillator to some guy in the street. And okay, a couple of them are sort of holding rifles and guarding the action while it's going on, but you'd think, okay, like these guys seem pretty friendly. Maybe they are just, you know, the equivalent of the ambulance crews now in Night City in 2077. But then later, you get this shot where this vehicle, which has the same insignia as those guys in the previous shot, just sort of pops up and absolutely lays waste to these people on a balcony. And you just have to wonder, who are these people that they're going to save one person and then absolutely blow some other people away in another shot? And talking of this shot, actually, you can see a sign here for Kiroshi, which gives us another glimpse at a different corporation that's definitely in the game. And quoting again from a wiki, Kiroshi are known best for their top quality optics. Kiroshi created the first cybernetic interface plugs and purchased Life Vision in 2011 to create its optical division. Kiroshi now dabbles in many forms of cybernetics, but specializes in various opticals, including the best-selling Anne Klein series, which premiered in 2019 in the movie Shout to the Stars. Obviously that, there's a lot of details thrown in there, but basically these guys, they make optics, which presumably explains why somebody else in this trailer has their eye ripped out. So clearly we sort of get a picture emerging here as we look through this trailer of a city that seems just completely frenetic and violent and gaudy. And in many ways it seems so senseless, but then as we sort of start to pick through these details, you get a sense of the motives of all of the people and the characters, and what it is they're trying to achieve by, for example, pulling someone's eye out of their head. And so basically the picture we kind of get in this trailer, and the thing that has me most interested to see what Cyberpunk 2077 is actually like, is that it's an incredibly broad city in terms of the augmentations you can get and the different motivations of the people in it, but you also get a sense of just this massive rich-poor divide, and those who have tech and those who don't have tech, which is borne out in shots like this, where you've got this guy with sort of a glowy, transformy shotgun with a lady behind him who, to be honest, it looks like she's smoking while she's pregnant, which doesn't seem overly wise, but then have a look at Night City and probably she's got bigger problems on her hands. But either way, basically what I'm trying to say in this slightly rambling video is that there's a lot of detail in this trailer, and I think it bodes really well for the game itself. It seems to be something really broad with a lot of complexity to it, and if the systems are any good, then I really think this is actually going to be something special. But anyway, that's enough out of me. Like I said at the start of this video, hopefully we should have something a bit more substantial on this game soon, with some actual concrete details rather than my moronic conjecture. But if in the meantime you would like to suggest your own theories or expand on anything I mentioned in this video, please do that in the comments below, because I don't know about you, but as you can probably tell, I'm extremely excited about this video game, and I really want to see more. So in the meantime, let's just have a bit of a chat about it. So anyway, that about does it from me for the moment on Cyberpunk 2077. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, giving it a like would be nice. Do subscribe if you fancy it, because we've got loads more videos coming up over the course of E3 and beyond. Some videos should be on screen now, in fact, so yeah, you might want to give one of those a click. If not, then no worries. But again, thank you so very much for watching, and have a lovely day.
Just around the corner.